voice, you have an impact. So after this session is over and you hear all of these wonderful things, make sure you are connecting with the other humans in the loop, because you know what happens in the loop. When you connect and connect and connect, it gets stronger. And together with AI, we can unleash unlimited potential in this world. So let me introduce our next speaker, Michael Anderson. Let me tell you who he is. He is a multidimensional and immensely passionate sales, technology, and business development executive with extensive experience working in business technology. As SoundHound AI's EVP of AI, that's a tongue twister, for enterprise, Michael leads strategy and operations for the company's enterprise artificial intelligence solutions, helping other businesses transform through the use of AI. With over 25 years of experience in the business technology sector, he has a proven track record of complex solutions and value sales, client relations, team and culture leadership. He's earned multiple awards, including Oracle Pacesetter and Global Rep of the Year. Now, Michael holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and management information systems from the University of Central Florida, and is passionate about fostering the next generation of business leaders. So as you can hear from his bio, he knows sales, he knows business, he knows tech. Welcome a trusted voice in AI to the stage, Michael Anderson.
Can you hear me okay? Everyone can hear me okay? Perfect. No?
No.
How about that? Better. Well, that was a great intro. I appreciate that. Just for a baseline, I actually started off as an engineer before I moved into sales. So I'm actually rounded around the back office to front office. So I appreciate everyone joining us today. It's a pretty large crowd. We're here to talk about Agentic AI. What a buzzword. Is that too close? Okay, thanks. Okay, so let's demystify what's gone on over the last 10 years in just the world of agents in architecture, in the world that we described as far as moving from a bot, which was very IVR 2.0, was very problematic. It was very FAQ focused. It drove what I would say very simple outcomes based on request, not so much integrated to back-end systems, but allowed you to interact and drop a little bit of the requirements of what a human would basically provide for an end user, okay? Then we moved into conversational AI platforms. Conversational AI was obviously a little more flexible, allowed us to drive better integrations to the back end. It allowed us to develop conversational flows and designs that allowed you to context switch between the conversation and what you're trying to do, but also insert FAQs. Simple pair, question answers, nothing too complex, very straightforward question, get an answer. Then we moved into Gen AI. Gen AI was a much more improved, better experience. It drove a lot more containment. And it drove containment based on the fact that I could simply speak as a human. I could speak as a patient, a consumer, an employee. And the power of that was allowing me to get that personal concierge to deliver what I was looking for as that user for an outcome. It also had a lot more rich back-end integrations. Obviously, integrations took a lot of work over time, and those things have become templatized and a lot easier to actually work through to stand up these environments. I also was able to actually repurpose, build libraries, build contents, intents, entities, things that have allowed me as a solution provider to stand these environments up quite quickly for end customers, especially in the enterprise space. As we all know, complex, add security, etc. Now we've got Agentic AI in multi-agent architecture. What is that? What does that do for me? What is the next generation providing me that I want to look at as an enterprise, SMB, or any, quite frankly, even a personal user of this type of technology? We're going to talk about that today. Okay, we're going to talk about what that means and how we drive a high level of containment. We drive a personal relationship with these solutions, and these solutions deliver the outcomes that you're looking for as a user, but also as if you're a company, what you want to provide for your customers, patients, or employees. So I'm going to use an example. I showed up to the conference this week, and by the way, what a wonderful conference. I was lost. I got dropped off in a car. I'm sitting here going, how do I find the SoundHound booth? There's 3 different wings of this place. It's 3 times bigger than the last time I was here 5 years ago. Quite frankly, I need help. So I'm calling employees, asking them to tell me where to go. They're giving me numbers, they're telling me look for this place, look for that. Nothing is translating. What happens if I had a personal concierge on my phone that already knew the map, knew my calendar, knew all the things I was doing, who I was meeting with, and it was able to give me direction specifically on how to get there and the options that I could take to get here. Obviously, I want to take the cool route, which is going through the fun tunnels underneath in a hybrid car versus walking on the street. So I did that. But that was through direction, collaboration, and context with individuals I was engaging. We believe that in the future at SoundHound, that everybody in this room will have a digital agent concierge, either personally or through your company. And that personal concierge will be engaging your enterprises to have them drive the outcomes you're looking for from your work duties and responsibilities, all the way to what I'm doing when I leave work and getting the support I need. And interacting with bots to deliver the outcomes that I'm looking for. And the only way to get there is through Agentic AI. So let's talk about what is Agentic AI. There's a lot of buzz. I keep hearing agentic everywhere. It's almost like LLMs and Gen AI 2.5 years ago. I want to demystify this. Let's just read directly from what Webster says. The word agentic is described as an individual power to control his or her own goals, actions, and destiny. That's open-ended. Open-ended to what? Open-ended to what I want to do as an individual to get the outcomes that I'm trying to do. And making sure that it's able to provide me that response. And if it isn't, how do I get a human in the loop to support me? Because I don't want to be stuck when I need help, okay? So Agentic AI, when you think about it, comes down to multiple different things. It's got to be intelligent. It's got to have the right generative AI tools and tool sets behind it to actually give me the outcomes I'm looking for. It's got to be adaptable. Adaptable in many ways. Language, channels. Where do I want to meet it? How does it meet me where I want to be met, where I can actually deliver it? Mobile apps, my mobile phone, and a car. It's got to be resourceful. It's got to connect to all the backend systems. It's got to connect to all the different channels that I use as an individual user. My computer, my phone, the car I drive in. Again, systems, the autonomy, and also the decision-making power. Those are all key to this. I know I got to speed up here, so I'm going to be a little faster. So I'm going to pick 2 things from this, and we'll get into the example. I'll show you an example, then we'll get into the panel. So I apologize for my speed here. If you look at conversational AI and what it meant in past, it was around deterministic approaches, meaning it was repeatable. I knew what it was. You had an intent, you had an entity, and you wanted to get something completed, like an appointment schedule. Now I'm moving into what is conversational AI next evolution is Agentic AI with multiple agent systems. So I'm going to talk about an example of that here in a minute. That approach goes back into the many things I just talked about. The other thing I want to highlight is that if you think about where we've come and where we're going, the ability to manage these environments is completely shifted. You no longer need processes that you build out from standard operating procedures within the enterprise. You actually build out logic. That logic is repeatable. And it leverages the knowledge bases, the LLM, to generate the outcomes that I'm looking for, and I create those in the environment much faster than I would in a traditional way through conversational solutions. You can do this in about 60% quicker. What does that mean? If I'm deploying something I want to deploy it 60% faster, that's pretty outstanding. And that's where the solution is taking us. I'm going to skip that just due to time, I apologize. Let's go into an example. So let's give an example of where I would use deterministic, agentic, and a human in the loop to deliver an outcome. All right, so on the left, I don't like usually reading, but this is a pretty good example, and I want to read from this, so it's pretty important as we go through this. But I need to reset my password. I want to look at my insurance policy and see how high my deductible is. as I'm considering a new plan to open enrollment. I'm about to have a child, and I'm curious of what the right plan is to choose. That's a lot to unpack. Do you think a conversational AI or a bot in history would ever be able to do this? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. If we look at the front end, that's all the variations of ways you can go in. That's just a sample set, obviously voice, chat, etc. And then you go into the arbitration. So think about the voice technology, speech to text, text to speech, the NLU, NLP, and the ability for me to understand that engine that makes those decisions on which subsystem do I use to pick between deterministic, agentic, and human in a loop. So that example, to reset my password, simple, repeatable, deterministic approach. I'm going to use a RAG agent, I'm going to respond, and I'm going to deliver the outcome. But look, I also need to understand my policy. That is a little more complex. Why would I not use Agentic AI? Why would I not go to an open enrollment agent that is an expert in that particular area and can deliver the outcome that I'm looking for, plus address all the questions I have? All right? And then I'm considering a new plan for open enrollment. I'm looking to make a change. I need to take action on that. I'm going to leverage a large language model to go and do that. And I'm going to work through what that changes are. And lastly, I'm having a child. Always a little bit of sentiment there as well when you do the response. You want to make sure you understand, hey, this is congratulatory, and let's take action on that so it feels humanistic. But then I'm curious of what is the right plan to choose from. The response, no problem, and congrats. Again, providing a little bit of sympathy, apathy, etc. I've sent you an email to reset your password, two-way authentication. Along with that, a link to open enrollment, which allows you to go through that process. Your current deductible is $10,000. It's pretty high. You probably need to change that. But a new parent, as a new parent, a low deductible plan is best considering frequent visits. You're obviously going to go to the doctor a lot. So how do I want to do that? And how do I look at that? If you want to learn more about it, it's $2,000 low deductible plan. I can get you to a human. This is the ability for us to know, hey, you're now going to be serviced by a human because this is pretty critical. Let's get you over to that person. All right, lastly but not least, a few things to consider. It's a hybrid world. It's a place where we need to think and consider. When you look at how do I want to roll these out, it's going to be based on each enterprise, each space, based on security, based on things and rules and requirements around the enterprise, all the way down from those different verticals, from finance to insurance to healthcare, etc. There's new tools that are going to come out. There's new changes that are going to be made, new policies, new dependencies, new business processes that are going to be required to actually support this. And then your organizations are going to change. There will be a shift in the type of humans that are involved in these and how we support it. And so this is a big lift. This isn't something that's going to happen tomorrow. In 2025, we should see about 30% of the agents out there leveraging Agentic AI. In 2024, it was only 1%. So think about the jump over the next year we're going to have. Thank you.
Michael, a round of applause. How many of you knew how Agentic AIs work? When I looked at that slide and saw that kind of like peek under the hood, it really, really excited me because now we're seeing, who are we again? Come on. We're humans in the loop, right? And so I was really excited when I saw not only our LLMs being used within the humans in the loop on that side, but that Agentic AI seems really, really in-depth. So thank you for giving us that peek under the hood.
We need to follow you up.
Yeah.
But let's keep this going. We are going to now have a phenomenal panel about the rise of AI agents. And so to facilitate that panel, it's going to be Deborah Matteliano. And let me just introduce her. Let me just tell you who she is. She serves as the global head of restaurant service providers at AWS, where she focuses on advising third-party delivery companies, restaurant technology providers, and virtual dining concepts on deploying the cloud to promote digital innovation. Prior to AWS, Deborah managed partnerships on Amazon's fulfillment and distribution team, and served as a founding member of Uber Eats sales organization, where she scaled Uber Eats, thank you, Deborah, to over 200,000 restaurants across the USA and Canada. Later, Deborah led Uber's virtual restaurant segment, where she grew virtual dining concepts by 700% globally. She is currently pursuing, her executive MBA at the Cornell Johnson School of Management. Maybe you can teach them something.
I graduated.
Congratulations! Welcome Deborah to the stage.
Hello, good morning. Welcome to our discussion on Agentic AI. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our other panelists. Unfortunately, not with as much gusto as the last couple of intros, but we'll do our best. So we have Susan Sly, who is the founder and CEO of The Pause. Susan, why don't you go ahead and join us on stage as well? We also have Caroline Reppert, who's the Director of the Center of Digital Risk and Innovation at National Retail Federation. Welcome, Caroline. And then lastly, we have Adam Dumey, who is the Global Vice President of Retail at Worldwide Technology. So warm welcome to our panelists. Today we're going to have a really cool discussion, and here's why. So I'm in the food tech space. You heard all about it. Most of the time when I'm talking about Agentic AI and my role at AWS, it's about how do we have an agent handle your query when your fries came cold and soggy. And it's a little bit less fun than some of these other use cases we're going to dive into. So Agentic AI is already super prominent across the food tech space, but the goal for today is to get you inspired on how these use cases are translating across several industries so that you can leave with some insight for how to deploy Agentic AI at your organization. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's kick it off. Thank you, Michael, by the way, for a beautiful keynote introduction and getting us all set up in the space with a good foundational understanding. Let's continue on that. Adam, tell us a little bit more about how you've specifically seen the jump from generative AI to agentic AI in the last year and how that's played out across your organization.
Yeah, so I think buzzword is a great way to position it. So I've been at CES more than 24 hours. Agentic AI is everywhere. If you think of Jensen's keynote on Monday, which is fantastic, Agentic AI is going to rule the world. And so what we've seen with our customer base is a shift in focus of conversation. So 2024 is about generative AI. Now they're starting to ask questions about this agentic thing, trying to understand how it differs, trying to think about the different business models and consideration of risk profile. So from a retail perspective, we're having a lot of interest in that, particularly for the efficiency that this provides, particularly for some of the maturity that's been developed during this first phase of artificial intelligence. So there's a lot of carryover for those in the audience that have implemented artificial intelligence so far. A lot of that muscle that you've developed will carry over. And so we envision more of an accelerated path with this wave than we did with the previous Gen AI one.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Caroline, I'm curious for you because you work with global retailers. We're talking actual decision making happening on an autonomous level. We're talking shopping assistants that can influence buying behavior, that can be trained to influence certain buying behavior. Are we at the point yet where I can train an AI to influence my husband to buy me a Birkin? Where are we?
I don't know about that, but once we get there, certainly let me know as well, because I would love to participate in that as well. But no, I think the response on the consumer side has been really strong and really positive thus far. It would be easy for consumers to kind of fall into the pattern of, writing off, chat assistant bots, especially in a customer service setting where they weren't always the most efficient or easy to use. But as the technology has continued to advance and retailers are deploying increasingly sophisticated models, the consumers notice and they see that the experience is significantly more seamless, it's more efficient, and like Michael was mentioning, the fact that these models can be trained to trigger pulling in a human as needed is also noticed by consumers. So you're not just stuck in this endless loop of dealing with an AI model. The fact that there is an option to opt for a human, and even in that experience, the AI is still working in the background on the assistant side. So consumers, even when they are dealing with a human, still see that the experience is significantly more seamless, significantly more efficient, and are taking note of that.
Makes a lot of sense, and it's good to hear that the adoption has been so embraced. Speaking of adoption, let's shift gears and go to a different sector for a moment. Healthcare, and women's health in particular. So Susan, you were inspired recently to start a whole new organization that's advancing women's health through Agentic AI and all kinds of new technologies. Tell us more about what gave you the idea for that startup, and then what kind of technologies are you implementing to scale your message?
I love the question, what gave me the idea. So I'm a 52-year-old woman who's been in menopause and perimenopause for 13 damn years. So for the VCs in the audience, I know the problem statement. And thank you, Michael, because you teed me up so beautifully. So just to give some perspective and foundation to those of you who've never experienced menopause, right now in the United States, there are 50 million women in menopause currently. By the year 2030, there will be 1.1 billion women in menopause globally. 78% of the women have severe symptoms. According to McKinsey, 41% of them want to leave their jobs due to lack of support. What enterprise customer person out there can afford to lose 41% of your decision-making women? None of you. So what we did, and thank you again, Michael, is we are looking at how do we use, and I've been deploying AI for 7 years as a CEO of 2 award-winning AI companies. What we're doing is we're looking at how do we create a personalized agent. There are 10 different phases of perimenopause and menopause. 10. I just learned this myself. There's surgical menopause. A woman could be 28 years old and have a hysterectomy. She goes into instant menopause. There's chemopause with chemotherapy. How many of you have someone in your life who, maybe your partner, your sister, whoever it is, who's had menopause symptoms, right? It's not just hot flashes, it's brain fog. 31% of women in menopause in the United States are on antidepressants. 1 out of 3. So personalized care is essential because every woman navigates menopause differently. So, Deborah, if we can use, and this is what we are building and in flight, if we can use a combination of generative AI and agentic AI, and then eventually when we go into phase 2, coming back to my background, brick and mortar, using multimodal AI and edge use cases, we can help that woman get precision recommendations and have an AI companion that serves her needs. And that is what we're building. And I clearly must have a degree of insanity because who takes on such a big problem? So yes, you all can just send good vibes for me because it does keep, this is the problem that literally keeps me up at night, so yeah.
That's amazing, just the level of innovation happening there and bringing it to bear in an area that needed innovation. But I'm curious, I'm sure a lot of you in the audience are wondering, how do we trust AI with something as fragile as health? So how do you think about that, Susan? And maybe you too, Caroline, given that you speak with policymakers often, what are some of the questions that are coming up with responsible AI?
I'll start and baton pass to you. So coming out of computer vision, I had an amazing amount of experience with AI ethics and this deploying of AI and building the trust. And at our company, The Pause, we only have 2 core values, trust and wow. And that trust means that we're everything from our board of medical advisors, which includes Dr. Lisa Larkin, who was previously just the president of the Menopause Society, Dr. Mitzi Crockover, who built the Iris Cantor UCLA Women's Health Center, that starting with our doctors and how they see the need of the patient. My co-founder oversees women's cardiology at a major hospital network in Phoenix, you can guess which one. And so she sees these patients every day, Deborah. So there's this piece about trusting who is creating the technology. And I've said for years, good people create good technology, but with AI and especially the black box, I came out of MIT, so I spent a lot of time studying AI in healthcare and AI hallucination. So that's why we deploy the use cases in bite-sized pieces, and it's deploy, get the user feedback. Even when you go through our consumer app, which is available in the App Store, once you get your menopause stage, it's reinforcement learning. Does this sound like you? When you engage with our AI agent, Harmony, she named herself, do you like this? Thumbs up, thumbs down. So we're doing that reinforcement learning and building trust, and we don't just deploy a bunch of things all at one time and throw spaghetti against the wall. We actually, it's just one little thing at a time. That's how we're handling it.
Yeah, so on the policy side, I will zoom out pretty significantly and say that we are very much still in the education phase of the AI policymaking process. There are some really phenomenal lawmakers out there and their staffs that are very knowledgeable about AI, how it works, what agentic AI is, but that is definitely not the majority of folks. So both us on the outside as well as those lawmakers and policymakers and their staffs who are really knowledgeable and sophisticated on these topics, we are all working to educate the rest of the policymaking the rest of the policymaking group really on what AI is, what it is not, what it does not do, and kind of go from there. I think one thing that's really important when it comes to the risk management conversation of AI is AI policy tends to get wrapped up in the privacy policy conversation, and for good reason. There is a lot of overlap, and having a comprehensive privacy bill is really important for a lot of reasons. But it is not the end of the AI policy conversation. It is an important component to it, but the conversation can't end there. So I think that's something that's really important to remember as well. When you're talking about privacy policy, even cybersecurity policy, you're talking about protecting from something bad happening. Again, that's part of what you're looking to do with AI policy, but fundamentally, AI is also about creating something and innovating and not stifling that. So again, the risk management piece, the privacy piece, the transparency piece, those are all really, really critical parts of the conversation, but it can't end there. So that's something that I think is really important to keep in mind as you're talking about what AI regulation and legislation looks like.
Can I jump in? So I've been in artificial intelligence for 11 years, and the one quote that has persisted is innovation moves at the speed of trust. And so as you think about what's at stake here, and it's what Michael alluded to earlier, this new architecture of artificial intelligence allows an independent system to perform an action independently. It allows the system to access tools independently. And of course, you provide that instruction, but this thing is out there. And so as you think about what is at stake, the importance of starting small, and the importance of thinking through your safeguards, it is paramount. And in Worldwide Technology, we've been using Agentic AI for 8 months, and we've learned that lesson that first impressions are really hard to overcome. And so being very deliberate, taking your time, being inclusive of all the stakeholders, and again, leveraging some of the muscle that you've developed with other phases of AI, it will make a difference.
Just want to add one thing. I think we're all saying the same things, being here about crawl, walk, run.
Yeah.
And building trust around that process, not only at the employee level, but at the company level, and obviously their end consumer or patient level. We've seen that throughout the entire life cycle of us. We're quite frankly 26 years old as a company, so we've been doing this a long time. I've been in AI for 11 years, and I've seen it, and we still take the same process. The reality is we want to do that because we don't want to risk them not coming back and adopting technology, because once they walk away from it, they will not come back.
I want to acknowledge these guys. They've been in AI for 11 years, and it's like dog years in AI, so that's like 77 years in anything else. So like when we're talking about how long we've been here, think about how AI's been around for decades. I just want to provide that, this like sold out room, like amazing. But AI, even in healthcare, has been around since the 50s. But to be, and kudos to you, because that 11 years is tremendous because of the pace of learning for humans of what we're deploying. It's so huge.
It's interaction.
Let's go back to walk, crawl, run. Now we've covered the walk, we've covered the crawl. Let's assume we're now at the point where we're sprinting. It's 2 and 3 years in the future. Policy has been ironed out. We've gotten rid of some of the early bugs. What are some of the things that you all think will begin to happen? What are some of the new use cases we'll be able to solve? I'll give you a quick example. I recently had the opportunity to meet a futurist who said that organizations are no longer going to be hiring the best and brightest top students. They're going to be hiring a different persona, sort of the laid-back genius who's sitting in the back of the room figuring out how to use AI to con the assignment. So are we going to change the way we hire? What's going to change in the next couple of years as we begin to pick up the pace?
I'm just going to jump in and say that it's already happening. Respect to the future. So I went back to school in the engineering side of MIT, and they said you could use ChatGPT for your assignments. I'm like, cool. So I built my own custom GPT. I fed it all of the textbook stuff. I named it, if you've gone to MIT, the mascot is Tim. I named it Tim's World 2. It wrote all my papers, and I got 100% on everything. So it's like, you know, and I know some of you are judging me. I have a company to build, I'm a mom of 4. Mad respect, right? But it's happening now. And the professors are even like, the AI, we're gonna be replaced with AI. One of my professors, Dr. John Williams, he was like, 90% of what I do now is replaceable with AI. So it's happening now, and it's changing the landscape, to your point, Deborah, of where we're gonna be in the future, and it's the who and the how is gonna be different. The AI codes now, you can have the new GPT model check your code, check your Python. Like it's the now of it. Yeah.
What do you think, Michael? Are we gonna be hiring people who are skilled at managing agents?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely yes. It's going to be, the ongoing evolution of this is going to be changing as you go across each of the spaces that are out there. And if you look at each vertical is at a lot different pace of play where you start looking at AI, agentic AI, and these types of solutions. And then get outside the conversational piece, think non-conversational, autonomics. Think about the things that happen behind the scenes that aren't requiring a human in the loop or an interaction with a human, that are taking place there's an incident, there's a change, there's a problem that happens within our infrastructure of our company that's evolving from a process or something we see unique from security. Those things happen when we don't even know, quite frankly, that even took place. But it took place at a much faster pace than we would see with humans sitting in a room trying to evolve and build out a policy, because that policy was already done through LLMs and Gen AI in the data. We haven't talked about data yet. Data is critical. If we don't have good data, you're not going to get the output that you want and the results you want from the solution. So you talked about a textbook. That textbook obviously has the type of content you want that's going to give you the paper output. But if you go do that within using ChatGPT on the web, you're not going to get that A.
And in healthcare, I'll just say that at this point, as another data point, because women's health affects all of us. Did you know for cardiovascular data for women in menopause, 70% of that data set came from middle-aged white men? And the reason is because men volunteer for clinical studies and women don't. I was raised by a single dad and, you know, married to an amazing man. But this is a problem. So even in our company, Michael, one of my mentors at Microsoft, she was like, well, why don't you just buy the data? And I said, because when I'm creating the models, the data doesn't represent mixed race women like me. It doesn't represent different kinds of menopause. I would have corrupt algorithms, and so we have to crawl to literally create our own data, validate the data before we create those models.
And you know, we talked about the longevity of some of us old dog people. I think you called us for AI.
I didn't
and
say
so,
that.
if we think of that problem, though, right? 10 years ago, African Americans who took pictures with artificial intelligence models couldn't be seen. Right, so as we think about this stage of artificial intelligence, we think about agentic AI, let's also remember, we've been battling some core challenges for a long time. And while we've made progress, we're not there.
No.
And that's a great example of just, it's criminal, right, at that level.
Well, I'd love for you to double down on that, Adam.
Sure.
What are some of the things that you think are limitations to agentic AI right now that might be misconceptions?
Yeah, so if I think of, so taking a step back to put this in context, worldwide technology, we're a $22 billion company. We service 90% of the Fortune 100. We have a strong middle market presence, small, medium business, and startups. I give you that because we have a certain vantage point about where different companies across geographic footprint, across revenue point, kind of product mix, and so agentic AI right now, we compare to Gen AI in 2023. right? So organizations are, again, as I mentioned, starting to think about it. They're starting to noodle over the use cases. The big difference is they're a lot smarter. Organizations are very knowledgeable about the burden it takes to implement artificial intelligence, the ongoing governance models, the data piece, the safeguards. And so we anticipate in 12 to 18 months, this will accelerate at a pace across industry, but for right now, it's very much a go slow to go fast mentality.
How are agents in voice AI going to evolve the next 2-3 years?
That's an open-ended question, but a good one. I believe that we're all going to have an ability to walk into our car. In my car, it's going to know what I'm doing as far as my calendar. It's going to know what my kids are doing, my family's doing, and it's going to have access to what I'm doing at work. It's going to give me what I need to do as I'm going in. No longer do I need a human that's actually my admin walking me through these things. I actually can do this in my car as I'm actually going to drop my kids off at school. And I can remind my kids they have a test 2 days ahead and give me these updates in advance. So it's going to be more proactive. Today I feel like we're in a reactive mode. We reach out to these solutions for an output, or we have an intent. We want that intent to give us some type of result. Reality is I want it to be smart enough to know my mannerisms, the things that I want as a human, and adapt to that and give me that where I want it to reach me. And at the time I want to be reached because I know it's critical, right? And then think about simple things like birthday reminders and the types of people that I have to engage to remind them, hey, I care about you, I love you. Sometimes you have to remember that. And our busy lives are out there, and something that's there to remind me, I think, would be critical. So we're obviously focused on the ability for us to do an outbound and inbound communication with these solutions through any means, through any type of IoT or / type of device.
And I think to piggyback on that, that's kind of on the audio side. I think this new framework is really going to introduce a personalized marketing that we've never ever seen before.
Yes.
So the idea historically has been personalization is kind of the holy grail for retail, but the idea is that's traditionally forecasting and offers. To Michael's point, I think we're going to get down to the voice level of Dumey. We're going to get down to an ad from Delta showing my face in a window seat getting off with an Uber. Right, we're going to be at that point because the technology, inclusive of Agentic, is going to make it possible, easy, and cost efficient, and also at a risk profile that's acceptable. So I think in 3, 4, 5 years, every one of you will have an ad that looks just like you, that is accessible and presented at whatever channel you are most ready to receive the offer.
Do you see the App Store becoming an agent store?
Yes.
Yes.
Very easily and very quickly and very profitably. Yes.
Just to add to your point, though, it's also my agent talking to your agent.
Precisely.
Engaging you and reminding you of the things that I'm looking for as
Right.
well, or what you're looking for from me.
Yep, and if you think of this ecosystem of agents, which is part of the benefit, the portability, that also bleeds into what we were talking about earlier about this idea of a metaverse as well.
Yes.
A true fruition of what that is has to do with portability at a personal level, not only just from a currency, but also an identity perspective. So I think in a very subtle way, a lot of the technology we're talking about is setting the stage for some remarkably interesting technology.
I'll jump in, Adam, because having experience building that, there's a lot of complexities, and I love WWT. In my past life, coming out of CV and retail, and looking at that, and how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
Because every state has a different data privacy law, and some states you can use facial, some states you can use
Right.
LPR, license plate recognition, some places you can't. And in building such a thing and deploying it at scale, there's a lot of aspects of that. And is it okay if I jump in and riff for 30 seconds on it? So I want you all to imagine that you have a customer with 1,000 locations, and each location has 30 to 60 security cameras. And so you build a computer vision algorithm that does customer journey, it does heat map, it's like, am I looking at Coca-Cola, am I looking at Pepsi, for how long? Did the cashier make eye contact? How long was I at the pump? Did I go get pizza at the QSR that's in the convenience store? And I deployed that. So I worked with the VAR, I worked with the SI, I worked with the OEMs. And we had, Adam, to your point, those conversations and stakeholders at all of those, and the stakeholders at the retailers. And so I'm just gonna give 3 quick lessons in deploying it. Number 1, you have to work with the end users of the technology. So we would go into the head office and bring in a bunch of their store managers and just be like, ask us any question. Are you afraid? Is this minority report? Getting their feedback, making sure you do that. Number two, you're dealing with latency, especially for vision. Our customers want us to introduce voice, so now we're multimodal. And then there are other ISVs, and you have this server with GPUs. So we would have, back in those days, we had like 4 A40s on a server. And then we'd say, well, the customer would say, well, can we put other ISVs in that same server? We're like, heck no. Like there's IP issues and things like that. And then there's this processing at the edge to save money, and then metadata in the cloud. You've got an edge to cloud strategy. We had to build our own AI agent, because here's a question I have for all of you. How do you handle it when you're not pulling data from camera XYZ at a location in Omaha, Nebraska, and suddenly all of the data for that location is convoluted because one camera is down and it's a critical point because it's the entry to the store. So we built our own AI agent to be able to monitor all the cameras and talk to the vision AI to be able to say, hey, that camera is down. So Deborah and I talked about this prior to this panel, because there are a lot of opportunities for AI, and my advice as one of the only people who has actually scaled it is that it goes back to what Adam said, and it goes back to what Michael and Carolyn said. You've got to really and truly take it slowly and ask yourself this question: why am I doing this? Because if you don't know why, that is a big problem. Simon Sinek said start with why. You've got to know why, because it is very, very complex. If any of you want to talk to me after, because this is something you're thinking of doing, more than happy to do that, but it is a complex thing that all of us are working to achieve.
Beautifully put. We're just out of time, but warm thank you for all of our brilliant panelists. We hope today that you've come away with something beyond understanding AI's simple automation and beginning to build out use cases, maybe in your own business, for AI to begin to make autonomous decisions and start to achieve some sophisticated goals. So thank you so much to our panelists, and enjoy lunch and the rest of the show.